Welcome to Belief, Being, and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow. Hi, everybody. Granddaughter Crow here with yet another episode of Belief, Being, and Beyond. And today we have a very special guest that you guys will recognize. We have our very own Ginny C. Bell. Let me give her a proper introduction. Ginny C. Bell is the author of Spirit Crystals, Discover Your Crystal Guide for Healing and Empowerment. We actually have an episode. Check out our library. And Divergent Witchcraft, an inclusive approach to making magic, and the Cosmic Creator Oracle deck. Woo! She is the founder of Our Coven online community, hosts the Cozy Coven Chats podcast, and a practicing witch. For 3 decades, Ginny has practiced yoga, meditation, reads tarot cards, and worked with the healing power of crystals. She's a Reiki master, meditation teacher, and budding herbalist. I love that, budding herbalist. Ginny uses her years of wisdom to champion others on their witchy journal. Welcome, Ginny C. Bell. Back to the show. Back to the show.
Thank you, thank you. It's been so long since I've
It's
been here.
it's been so long. I love it. I love it. It's really kind of beautiful here at Belief Being and Beyond, getting to know the hosts and, knowing like a lot of people may not know that you do Reiki. A lot of people might not know of these little things and these jewels. And so I'm really, really happy to kind of highlight you today. We're going to get into this beautiful book, Divergent Witchcraft. The cover is after my own heart. I absolutely love it. For those listening, you can jump over to the YouTube channel or just go to jennycbell.com and take a look. There's crows and ravens on it. Okay, so Divergent Witchcraft. So many questions, so much beauty, but I'm going to start here. This is the perfect time in history for this book to come out with this title because there is a lot of exploration around different ways of thinking, different ways of processing, different ways of seeing the world. And we've got divergent, meaning like ADHD, even highly sensitive, anybody who doesn't feel quote unquote normal. And it is so absolutely beautiful. My cat loves it, you guys. Little D wants to jump on the show because she's like, I'm a divergent witch. Yes, you are, little D. So, anyway, one, I want to tell you that this is the perfect time because people are starting to explore that we are different, yet we need to be inclusive. And and I know that you are an educator. I know that you are very, very deep in lifetime learning, sharing wisdom, and working with you for this long. One of the things that I say to you that I don't just say to people is, Ginny, I like the way you think. I like the way you think. The process that you go through, it's very, very grounded. And I also think that it comes through as an educator. So I guess my first question is, how do you define, for the listeners, how do you define the scope of divergent and then against maybe this quote unquote normal? I know you talk about it a little bit in the book, but I want them to kind of know.
So that's a great question. And when writing the book, looking around, seeing there wasn't really other books geared towards witches about neurodivergence or anything like that. There's some books for kind of adapting and this and that accommodations, but nothing that came out and said divergent. We didn't want to use the term neurodivergent because if you're going to write a book like that, you can't write it for all of the different neurodivergences.
Oh,
So, for instance, if someone is dyslexic, there is a special way to print a book to be for a dyslexic reader. They're hard to find, but they are out there in the world. If someone has a neurodivergence where they can't read off of like white paper, that's a neurodivergence. There's a neurodivergence where people mix up numbers, dyscalculia. So there's like all these different divergences. And so I was like, let's use the term divergence because it's more of like we're deviating from the quote norm. And this is for anybody who feels this divergence, including, like you said, highly sensitive people. And that was intentional because I think this is the first of many books I think we're going to see in the next 10 years or so, like ADHD witch and autistic witch and OCD witch. We're going to see people go, yeah, let's do this. Let's do more. And they can get more niche. I wanted this to be like the beginning and like lay this groundwork for everybody. And so divergent to me means we're deviating from the norm, which I think witches do anyway.
right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Most of us, if we weren't born a witch, we're born in a society where that term is still taboo in some places. It's still illegal in certain countries. There are still witch burnings to this day. Like come out and just reclaim that word in itself is a divergence.
Right.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. That even because when I look at the witchy community, I'm like, oh, we all are just a little gifted, and we all observe the world a little bit differently. We all have curious minds. We all like to investigate. We don't necessarily just want to take, somebody else's word for it. We are exploratory. We're the nerds. We are, the beautiful, intelligent people and all of that. Speaking of that, one thing that I really love about this book is the inclusivity. So just kind of like what you said, that there will be probably more niche books on the different type of titled or labeled or identified all over the spectrum of divergent people. But yet we're here and you're very inclusive.
Mhm.
And I love that you're a forerunner here because I see you as a forerunner. I see this as a forerunner. One of the things that you do is not only are you inclusive, you are also empowering. And I'm going to go here. There are many of us in this culture in the United States and abroad that were born into an Abrahamic religion, an Abrahamic theology. And one of the notes around those Abrahamic philosophy, or now I should call it, it is a theology,
Yeah.
is this idea that you do what I say. You don't move until I tell you to move. You do not question. You surrender. And and I think that construct is very limiting to the human soul and spirit and expression. And in this book, you're actually, as I read through it, you are actually kind of liberating us out of that construct. You're literally saying, yes, here are the guidelines, which I'll talk a little bit more later, but that you get to choose. And it's self-empowering. It's self-empowering, the ability to kind of help people deconstruct a theology of serving a one deity or in a fashion and free their soul. Did you do that on purpose? Like, or was that just a byproduct from spirit that came through? Because I saw it.
Thank you for seeing that. That's totally on purpose. Something I think that goes hand in hand with neurodivergence is if you want to live in your power as a neurodivergent person, you have to deconstruct what you've been given. So you're born into a society that says you're weird or different or other. or and you need to fix yourself in order to blend in.
Right.
And so part of like the journey of an empowered neurodivergent person is deconstructing and seeing like, okay, society gave me all of this, but I don't want it.
Ah,
And I'm going to remove some of these layers that it's tried to put on me. I'm going to take off some of these labels. I'm going to reject some of these quote norms. And what goes along with that most of the time for people is deconstructing the Abrahamic religion. Because even if you weren't quote born into it or raised in a church or going to a temple, it's immersed in Western civilization.
yes, it is.
So much of what like our work ethic in the United States is based off of like puritanical beliefs. So much of what we do is based off of patriarchy. All of it comes back to those three. And if, for people who don't know, the Abrahamic religions are the ones that come from Abraham. So Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And so, so much of I feel like what I've done in my lifetime is go like, this is not for me.
Right.
And I don't have to accept it, even though everyone else seems to accept it. I don't have to accept it. At least I don't have to accept it in my body and my soul and my spirit. I may have to blend in into society. I always joke that I'm putting on like my human suit when I go back out.
Right, right, right.
Going to a party and putting on my human suit. But at home and on your own, you can know I don't give into that. I don't believe in that. That's not what I'm internalizing. I'm not taking that on.
And I think that's so empowering because, like you said, it does go through like in these places just work ethic, like you just said. And I think that that's another thing that the show likes to do is look at the belief system because it does constitute how you behave in the world. And if you come from a belief system that tells you not to think for yourself or to serve a God that is jealous over you, I mean, when's the last time you looked at a father, a parental figure that's jealous? That's just kind of,
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to, yeah, I am going there. But anyway, with this one, the one of the keys that you do it, and I'm like, how is she going to do this? How is she going to teach us that we're okay and give us guidelines and also help us to deconstruct harmful belief systems? And you know what? This is how I see what you did. There are so many, this is my metaphor. There are so many cookbooks out there. There are so many recipe books out there. And for the majority, you pick up the cookbook, you read the instructions and ingredients, and you follow along. And that's great. And you can make a lot of things. But in this book, Ginny goes, "Welcome to the kitchen. This is flour. This is an oven, metaphorically. This is what we do with the oven. Oh, if you want to, you can put as much seasoning in as you wish, but just know that this seasoning does this and this water does, like you're showing us the kitchen and saying, here's a pot and a pan, here's some water, here's the stove, here's the refrigerator. You kind of lay it out and I love that because my mind was like, oh my God, if I would have had this book 20 years ago.
Right?
And I'm glad I have it now. But the beauty is that you're not telling us this is how you should cook, lobster thermidor, and it should turn out like this, you know? You're like, you can cook whatever you want, and here is the process. Here is what I'm calling, you can create your own recipe. You're giving us a tour of the kitchen. That's how I see it. What do you think about that feedback? Because I have not told you that before.
No, I love that because that's exactly intentional. So what I've noticed working as a teacher with neurodivergent kids is depending on what kind of neurodivergence they have, but like really specifically like kids with autism, they need to know why with everything. And I would say like it happens a lot with ADHD too, but like they need to know the why and they need to know like the foundation. They're very interested in like building from the ground up. Like it's not enough for them, like when I would teach, for instance, about Edgar Allan Poe, it's not enough for me to just be like, here's the raven. They want to know like who is he? When was it written? The background. They like a deeper dive. And, that's kind of what people call like a hyperfixation, or, they have like, we have like a moment of info dumping in our house where we're like, yes, you get 2 minutes to info dump on this topic that you collected a lot of facts on and go for it, right? And so when I was writing the book, I was like, okay, so if I'm going to really try to be inclusive, for anybody, any kind of learning style, what would you do? Well, I want them to know how everything comes. I want them to have these foundations. Like, as far as I know, I don't know of many other beginning witch books that teach you how to write a spell. They're just like, here's some spells. But instead, I'm like, here's what I do before a spell. Here's what a spell usually essentially has. Here's what I do after a spell. And now here's a formula. Now you make your own spells. And then after that, I answer questions that are common, like, what do I do with the remains of a spell? Or do I have to write a spell? And that was because, like, I just don't see that anywhere else. If I'm brand new, a spell is so new. Like,
Yes.
it's similar to like a prayer with props, but it feels very intimidating. It feels very formal. It's very conflicting. Like, a folk magic spell is going to be very different than like a ceremonial magic spell. It's so different. So I was like, let me give someone like all the foundations, and then after this book, you can go anywhere you want and have like an understanding of any kind of system of witchcraft.
Great. That's what I love. And you also break this down into three parts,
Yeah.
which you kind of talk about almost as the model of a tree. And then you can finally branch out. So the first part is the awareness. Let me go ahead and open up the book because you guys, this is so juicy. We're sitting down with Ginny C. Bell talking about her newest release, Divergent Witchcraft. I absolutely love it. www.jennycbell.com. So, part one, establishing your roots. And you help people throughout the first three chapters figure that out and what that means and the legacy of light and the book of the legacy of light, just calling, all of that and the meditation. And then you go into part two, which it's like, okay, growing your practice. Now let's talk about the elements. Now let's go into the circle. Now let's, work with the moon. And then you go into part three, which is like making your own magic, building your craft and spell casting. And my favorite, which I've never heard of directly, is overcoming overwhelm. And I'm just like, you wrote this book for me. You wrote this book for me.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I'm like I said, I wish I would have had this when I first began because
me too.
you're actually saying you can do whatever you want. It's just, you don't want, if you want to boil soup, don't put it in the refrigerator, put it on
Right.
the stove. And yet you give people liberty to do it with a lot of journal prompts. And I love the way that you encourage the journal prompts because you're like, let's go into scientific method. This happened, journal about it. How did you feel? How
Yeah.
did you do this? And how did you do that? Let's try it again. I just saw a lot of that scientific method where you're looking for evidence instead of blind faith.
Yes. Yeah. And so that comes from my background in teaching. When you become a teacher, there's lots of different theologies, well, not theologies, methods and philosophies for teaching. And I really liked chunking, which is really works for any kind of brain. And I taught special education. I also taught GATE, gifted and talented education, which is its own kind of special education, but those kids are very high IQ. And so something you learn with chunking is like you take information that might be big, like I would teach Shakespeare to eighth graders, right? So this is like big stuff. We're gonna break it down. We're gonna chunk it. We're gonna make it smaller. We're gonna pause. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna reflect. We're gonna write about it. By the time we're done doing that, it's like they get it. And so in the book, I was like, how do we transfer that kind of teaching philosophy to a book? And it was through the exercises. There's lots of exercises in the book, and then through journaling, because it's like I personally write when I'm reading something. Like I take notes. Like my daughter, she just borrowed Bless Me Ultima from me. And I'm like, sorry, because like the whole book is just like covered in notes because I take the notes in the book. And she's like, no, it's okay, I can ignore you. And I'm like, great, perfect. But I want people to do that. And the way it was printed, it even has like a lot of pretty wide
Yeah.
margins and a lot of space with the intention that you could hopefully like highlight or I saw somebody did a really nice book review and they used the little like book tabs and they had done this stuff. She even went in and color coded, like she color coded all the meditations one color. Like please make it a workbook, like love it, make it your own because that's how we actually learn. Very few people learn through reading.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah. See, I'm
Yeah.
comforted. I can hear. It's interesting because when I first went to college, in the intro course, we really had to study about how you learn.
Yeah.
And it kind of broke it down like, when do you learn the best? Like, are you a morning learner, an evening learner, midnight? Do you wake up? How do you like information? Do you just want it pieced to you, or do you want to chunk it, like you said, or whatever you called that? And that's how I was. I wrote a paper that was like, if you're gonna tell me to make a pizza, don't just hand me a ball of dough. You take me into that kitchen, you show me a pizza, and
Right.
then I will know what I want to do. And that's exactly what you did. So, again, you guys, this is an amazing book, Divergent Witchcraft. Yeah, cookbook all the way.
And there's actually a real recipe in there. It was an analogy, but there is a really good recipe for peanut butter cookies. Just saying.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I absolutely love it. One thing that I do want to ask you is, because you're an educator and you're so curious, how has like your life being a lifetime learner continued into creating this book and things that you do just with the lifetime learning? Because I'm a lifetime learner too, and I know a lot of our listeners are.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure all the listeners are. Otherwise, they wouldn't be listening, right? If they're like want to learn about everybody's different viewpoints. And
It's true.
I love that. That's, I think, beautiful. Being a lifetime learner makes writing really hard because I feel like I'm never done. Like when I got the book,
Right,
immediately I was like, you know what? I should have added this, this, and this. So that's
right.
hard because you're learning all the time. And so you're like, I really want to add a couple more things I just recently learned, you know. So that part's kind of hard. It helps, I think, make life interesting. I feel like there's PJ Harvey song and she talks about how people stagnate with time. And I think the way we don't stagnate with time is through learning. And it doesn't even have to be that you're learning something modern. You're just keeping your brain sharp and learning. And that to me is like the secret to a happy life, secret to a long life, secret to a life where you're still with it, hopefully, as you age. I look at my grandfather as an example. He was always reading. So I was like a retirement child. So like my mom lived with them and they were retired. So I lived like the New Jersey retirement lifestyle with my grandparents, going to the diners and going to the deli every day and getting donuts. Like it was like a great way to grow up. But my grandfather totally modeled for me, I think, how to be a lifelong learner. We were always watching documentaries. We always watched Jeopardy. He was always reading. He walked and got the newspaper every day, so he kept fresh on the news. But then he was always just reading for joy too. Like we were always going to the library and he was always getting books from a friend and he was always doing the crossword puzzle. And so as a kid, I'm like, this is what you do when you have free time. You learn.
It's what you do. I absolutely love it's so that sounds so healthy too. It's so healthy and curious and expansive, and you're absolutely right. Belief, being, and beyond. That's the beyond. When you have extra
Yeah.
time, beyond. Okay, so let's give them a little sample because we kind of showed them the overview and what's going on. But there are two things that I hear people complain about that you actually help us with: meditation and journaling. Could you give us your take on meditation for those who can't sit still,
Yeah, which
and
is like everyone.
journaling.
Yeah.
Yeah, like everyone.
Yeah.
And journaling so that people can get a kind of a taste on how you are approaching these and talking about them.
Yeah, so I think let's with meditation, I have been a practicing meditator since I was a teenager. I got a book with CDs in it, and so like a book on tape. And I in that on those CDs, it was like a workbook, and the CDs had different types of meditation. One of them was a walking meditation, one was like a 5 minute sit. And so at 15, your brain is like, what? Full of hormones and wild and stuff. And the one that clicked for me was the walking meditation. And I was like, oh, so like I don't have to be like what I saw on TV, sitting and having my fingers in a special way and like, because it was like this is pre-internet. I didn't have internet in my home. So it's like what I was exposed to was what like I could see on television. I was a big fan of like Karate Kid too. And
Of
there's like
course.
meditation stuff in Karate Kid, right? So I'm like, it seemed kind of like unattainable because he's in like Okinawa when he really learns that stuff. So anyway, so learning through a CD, and then I would hike all the time in New Jersey. I still love to walk. I like to hike. And I was realizing that like what they were talking about in this workbook, like what you were supposed to be getting at a meditation, I would get sometimes on my walks.
Oh,
And so then I started using meditation like in kind of like meditative moments, which I talk about in the book. Like you get in the zone. A lot of us get in the zone when we're doing a craft. I used to be a really into beading. My eyes aren't like what they used to be, but I would make these really intricate like bead designs and like flowers and all this stuff. And you just like put on music and just be like in the zone. You get in the zone so much that you like come out of it and you're like, wait a minute. I haven't eaten or drank or used the bathroom. Like, time flies. It's any activity where time just flies for you. That's a meditative moment for you. And so basically, it was like, okay, how do we kind of harness that in like our life intentionally? When I became a teacher, I would teach meditation, which was definitely made some people uncomfortable in the school because it's rural, very Christian area. They're like, what is she doing in there? Kids loved it though.
yeah.
Kids loved it and they would be like, can we do it again? Can we do it again? Like they really enjoyed it. And it would just be like, we'd always do the same meditation, very common one where it's like, you become the tree and you put roots down into the earth. But the kids would tell me these great visions and they would be so relaxed. And then some would continue it through like on. And so I see meditation as attainable for anybody. Um, there's like I have a list of accommodations in the book. Even if you have aphantasia and you can't visualize, you don't have to meditate with your eyes closed. You can be drawing and doodling the whole time. Like, and that could be how you see your vision. It doesn't have to be how we see it on television or there's no one way. I'm very anti any teacher that says this is the one and only way, that to me is a red flag. And then I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't want to learn from you. So,
Mhm.
so lots of options. And then Insight Timer, it's not mentioned in the book, but for those of you listening, it's a free app. And there's like so many different types of meditations on there that you could just keep, no, nope, I don't like this. No, I don't like this until you find something that goes, wait, I think I like this. So I think meditation is important in witchcraft too, because that's how we imbue intention. That's how we come focused. That's how we can do journeys. That's how we can put like talk to deities, connect with our spirit guides. Like all of it comes back to like being able to do meditation.
I love that. I mean, when I read that you were like, it's okay to wiggle. And I'm like, oh, and I am teaching an online class and I did a Wednesday check-in the other day and I was just like, now it's time to take a minute for yourself in a meditative state. It's okay to wiggle because Ginny C. Bell gave us
Yeah,
permission. It's one of those things that it's like the point isn't the discipline of trying to become, you know, with no mind. The
right.
point is actually finding that place where time flies where, that state of being. And I absolutely love that. And now journaling too. So many people are like, I don't like my handwriting,
Yeah.
or, what is this book's approach? We're sitting down with Jenny C. Bell, Divergent Witchcraft on journaling. One thing that I loved before you even take off is you're journaling to your future self,
Yeah.
or you're journaling to someone else. Your future self is one that I just latched onto because it just makes so much sense. And I know what I'm going to want to know. I'm going to want to know, how did I feel about that? What
Yeah.
was weird for me? I'm going to want to know all of the deets.
Yeah.
And so it kind of opened that up. But talk to us a little bit about journaling and what that path is like and how you explain it from the Divergent Witchcraft.
Yeah, well, I think what you talked about first is that I try to give people a purpose for journaling.
Oh,
Because a
yeah.
lot of times it's just like journal. Okay, why? You know what I mean? I always try to, like, when I'm writing, I have a snarky teenager in my mind. It's like, okay, but why?
Yeah, me
Like,
too.
why would I do that? Okay, so it's important for me to always put the why. And so, yeah, you're journaling for your future self. I one time read this, I think it was in the Medical Medium book, but he said something like, anything you write is witnessed by your angels and guides. And so you're never writing alone. And that's beautiful. So if you're someone who's like, I really like to write, but no one wants to read my stuff, someone's reading it. You just don't see them. An ancestor, a spirit, whatever. Somebody is reading these things. But for me, I talk about in the book how, as an English teacher, I started every class with 10 minutes of journaling. And so the kids just came in, they got their notebooks out, and they would write. I had a timer. Sometimes I'd have a quote on the board, sometimes a question, sometimes just free write, and they'd fight it. So, like, the first couple of weeks, they're like, why are we doing this, miss? And I don't want to do this. Or like they're doing like anything they can but settle down. But then something happens, and they, at some point, like the majority of them just come in and they're looking forward to writing because they do have something to say, or they do have something on their mind or on their chest. And so it becomes this like really strong habit. And it's very healing. I think it's very therapeutic, but I think for a lot of people, it's also how we learn. Because some of us really don't retain information until we either talk about it or write about it.
It, I kind of see it like I have a dream at night and I wake up and I'm remembering the dream, but it's going to disappear if
Yes.
I don't write it down or tell somebody about it. That's kind of how I think about that. And then the beauty in reading it back out loud or speaking out loud, you also kind of talk about saying things out loud. And I want you to talk about that a little bit. From my perspective, I know a thought sounds different when I hear it with my own two ears instead of in my head.
Yeah.
It comes out differently, and I'm like, oh, and just the magical essence of speaking out loud, exercising your throat chakra, and all of this, because I come from a long line of people who understand, like my father was like, your words, if strong and dedicated and well cured over an extended amount of time, your words hit all other dimensions. So speak, exercise. So talk to us about, why would we speak out loud any spells or incantations or mantras, or even just read back our journal aloud.
Yeah, there's lots going on when we're speaking. So I think the breath is sacred. And in Zen Buddhism, every breath is a beginning. So like every breath is a new beginning. Like so at any moment you can start over as soon as you take a new breath, right? So the breath is sacred, the throat chakra is sacred, vibration is sacred. We know that vibration is felt and seen energetically, and it goes beyond like the body. There's so much going on in just the sounds, right? I often I often think about birds and how they sing these beautiful melodies and bees make these buzzing sounds. And we are just now, scientists are just now realizing that those things are healing to humanity. That the sound of buzzing bees actually lowers like your cortisol levels and your stress levels, and it's like actually healing to you and your body and your physical being. So, when we talk about prayers and spells, I mean, to say it in your head is one thing, but to say it out loud is empowering. And so if the book is really going to be about like making magic, magic is about power and accumulating power. So when you speak a spell as opposed to just thinking it aloud, thinking it in your mind, you're putting all this power, this vibration, the breath, your melody, your everything is like all coming there instead of just like I think it. Thinking it isn't to me enough. It's like that's just like a seed, and then like when we speak, it's like really blossoming.
If you are enjoying this show, you can support it by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Also, connect with us. Leave a comment. Text the show option wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a review or email us at beliefbeingbeyond@gmail.com. Also, I'm on Patreon, where a small donation goes a long way. Find this and more episodes at granddaughtercrow.com. Thank you. Now back to the show. Love that. I love that. So we are doing this. Tomorrow is solstice.
Yes.
Tomorrow is the summer solstice, 2026. So now that we're talking about witchcraft, divergent witchcraft, and solstice, do you have any like thoughts or tips or tricks or ideas, approach to what can we do starting now, even though you can pick up this book wherever you get books. You can, go to your local. We love going to the local, bookshops and all of that. Buy two, donate it to your library, as well as this makes a really cool gift for an individual in your life that actually is a teenager or just came in like, I'm not a teenager, but I'm eating this up. It's feeding a part of myself. So, anyway, let's talk solstice.
Yeah, so again with me, I like have an approach that's always like inclusive, right? So when I think about solstice, I think about the very root of it. It's the longest day of the year. So for those in, Australia, it's going to be winter, so you're at the shortest day of the year, but I'm going to talk about summer solstice. So longest day of the year. So at the very essence, we are really celebrating sunshine. And so if you're like, what can I do that day? So simple, you could get outside in the sunshine. You could watch a sunset, you could watch a sunrise, you can spend some time on a walk just thinking about the sun is shining, it's on my skin, it's making things grow, just reflecting. And that's a meditation, it's a meditative moment. I think things get really complicated. I would say overcomplicated online because we see people do these like really beautiful altars and elaborate ritual. But if you're going to treat witchcraft as like a lifelong journey, as an actual like philosophy or practice and not a hobby that you leave at some point, but you want to keep it and you want to really keep it for life, it's making it really simple and living it. So for me personally, every year I take the kids to this local park that we really like and we just frolic. Like, I pack a picnic. I just want to be outside. That's what summer solstice for me is about being outside in the sunshine. And it's not really got to be more complicated than that, personally.
I love it. All things sunshine. And there's another aspect that you really throw down about, not only is it daily, but it's fun.
It's fun.
So make it fun. Like put on your sunshine shirt. Whatever says sunshine, dress up, buy foods that are sunshine, make sun tea if
Yeah.
that's what you want. Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that I agree 100%. And I think that it doesn't matter what belief system you come from. The sun, celebrate the sun,
Yeah.
eat
Listen
sunflower
to
seeds.
music about sun. The Beatles have a ton of songs about the sun because they're from England. So,
Yes. They're from England.
Important to them.
Beneath
And
is
I think it's on Father's Day this year, so if you're really doing Father's Day stuff, I say the Sabbats are like summer solstice goes until the next Sabbath, which is in August. So you could celebrate anytime.
continuously celebrate because it's not just one time, it's actually a pattern that we get to recognize.
Yeah.
I love that liberty. See, you always are very inclusive with different people's thinking and everything. Let me see. Oh, there is another point that I wanted to talk about because we kind of went there. Music and witchcraft, because you just talked about the Beatles. And I think that, in your book, you actually talk about the different types of music and vibration and things like that. You guys pick up the book. But it's also like this whole idea that sometimes spiritualists will be like, I can only listen to whale songs at this vibration. And Jenny's like, yeah, but in certain parts, you want to also be able to dance. You want to be able to identify to the extent that sometimes you even create playlists
Yeah.
to your witchcraft. Can you kind of talk about that? Because I've never heard that either.
Yeah, so the one of the few quotes in the book is actually from Patti Smith, and Patti Smith is one of my favorite musical artists. But when there's a section of the book where we talk, I kind of like I wanted to leave the reader with a choose your own adventure moment, like the old books. So I was like, let me give you all this foundation and then let's do a choose your own adventure. And so that part's on allies and I talk about crystals and herbs and this and that. In that section though, I wanted to talk about music and creation and dance because those things are all so good for your energy, right? Like putting on music that makes you feel happy and makes you want to dance, that's gonna really like all the new agers say, raise your vibration. And you're gonna feel really good in your body. If you're feeling really good and you're wanting to do a spell where you need good energy or you're trying to bring something into you, well, after your dance session, you're totally ready. And so, why not? And another thing that I like to do is if I'm doing like a manifesting for something really, like writing, for instance. For my first book, I put together a playlist. I was like, okay, I really want a book. I want a book deal. What's the first song on that playlist? Paperback Writer from the Beatles, because it was one of the few books I know as a child I've been listening to about an actual writer. I'm not going to write a dirty book like in that song, but it's a writing song, right? And so that playlist had a bunch of songs that made me feel happy, that made me feel good, or were about writing or creating art to kind of help align that. And so when I'm listening to the music, it's like I'm reinforcing the spell work because I'm like, here's my song. This is my author song. I want to be an author. And I'm putting that energy out there yet again.
I love that because, it's kind of like music is very magical because it is a universal language. It's going to hit your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, your spiritual body,
Yeah.
and it's going to align them. It's working with both of your hemispheres, and it just puts you in the zone. So I absolutely love that. And I love the way that you finish the book. It's very empowering. At the end of the book, because of who your readers are, they need to know that they graduated, and you
Yeah.
literally are like, you're a witch.
Yes.
I almost feel like you dubbed them with some sort of a wand.
Yeah, well, that was kind of purposeful. I know, I'm sure you've experienced this, but I've talked
Yes.
with Patty Negri about this, about how people will be like, well, how do I know I'm a witch?
Right.
And we're like, you just are.
Yes.
Some people really need permission.
Yeah.
I teach online and people are always like, do I get a certificate? This is
Yeah.
like, there's this human thing of like, where's the proof that I did the thing? And so I wanted people to be like, if someone asks like, well, what makes you a witch? They can be like, on page 146,
Yeah.
Jenny C. Bell said I'm a witch. And then they can be
Yes.
like, I'm a witch.
Check that box off for the divergent people who are like, but where can I, who are you recognizing me? Because yeah, I remember doing a solitary witch and I would have my little, witch jewelry, and I'd wear it everywhere, and I'd do my little broom closeted spells. And then finally, after a year and a day that I took myself, I walked into a metaphysical shop and I'm like, how do I know I'm a witch?
Yeah.
And it's also just back to the beginning of this conversation. It was like, oh, you're looking for permission from a higher power. Where did you learn that? Now, granted, there are a lot of great certifications. We're not saying that you get to just say it, whatever, but in this, that's a part of the witchcraft, is that liberation,
Yeah.
self sovereignty, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And so now that we've finished a little quick overview, and we could go on and on and on, you guys pick up Divergent Witchcraft, Ginny C. Bell. Did I have it like this?
You did, but that's okay because maybe that helps somebody.
Yeah. If you have an eye that sees upside down,
Yeah, like that
that's
works
for
for
you.
me. Yeah,
Hey, it worked for me.
you
It
never
worked
know.
for me. I'm divergent. I know. I just haven't been, somebody else didn't give me certificates. I
Right.
just know that this made so much more sense to me. And it also gave me the foundation to be able to go, oh, now I can pick up those other spell recipe books and make it my own. Because they keep
Exactly.
telling me to make it my own. And I don't know what make it my own means. I don't know that I can switch cinnamon for what. I don't know.
Yeah.
And when you actually get to this point. So, Ginny C. Bell, we ask all of our guests, what, Ginny C. Bell, what lies beyond?
Yeah, so I love this question. It's part like I like asking it on the show. But so like let me just take you back. I have the special birthday journal that I do with my son because I try to do different things with my different kids. And it has questions, like interview questions every year for his birthday. When he was a toddler, one of the questions was like, how do you view God? And he said, God is like a black hole in space and is like everything but nothing. This is like
Mm,
a toddler. And
yeah,
then I was like, this kid is special.
yeah.
And so I sat with that for a long time. It's actually how I created my deck, the Cosmic Creator Oracle deck, is because I started sitting with that energy and came to know that as the Cosmic Creator, which I see as exactly as you described. It's like out in space, it's everything and nothing. I see it as blindingly bright, but also so blindingly bright it's dark. And to me, that's what's beyond is we go there. I believe in reincarnation. Our souls go there to recharge, to reflect, to see did we learn our lessons? And then we decide, are we coming back? Are we waiting for certain people? We're going to greet them and then we're going to come back. Are we going to come back together? I fully, I have never been concerned about dying. I've always been like, yep, there's something after this.
Yeah.
I just have always had 100% firm belief in that. Always. I've always like just felt like, yeah, there's something beyond. And so to me,
Yes.
the beyond is beautiful. It's reflection, it's learning, it's rejoining with people until we decide if we're coming back. And I take kind of the Buddhist idea as if when we are done, when we have learned all the lessons, we can either become like a bodhisattva or an ascended master and help others, or we can just float into the cosmic creator and become part of that. And then we're just part of the larger thing.
I love it. I'm like, yes, I agree. For me, I love that dichotomy between it's so bright, it's blinding. You
Yeah.
know, because I can see that consciousness. So anyway, Ginny, thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
back on the show and letting us know. You guys, Divergent Witchcraft, Ginny C. Bell, www.jennycbell.com. Follow her on all of the handles. Everything is below, how you can reach her. Pick up this book and give it to a gift. Give it as a gift to somebody who keeps asking you why.
Yes.
Because
Give it
this,
to your wise.
give it to the wise. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. To include me. So, anyway, thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode of Belief Being and Beyond. We love you, and we will see you on the flippity flip. Thank you for listening to another episode of Belief, Being, and Beyond. Please subscribe and share with whomever would enjoy this podcast. And please leave us a review. We really, really appreciate that. For more about Granddaughter Crow, granddaughtercrow.com. There you can learn about her classes, sessions, and all of her books. And for more about Ginny C. Bell, please visit ginnycbell.com, where you can learn about her books, her classes, and Our Coven community. Thank you so much for listening.